Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Joffrey Noodle Legs here today. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got another sort of listing video, not a top 10, but one of the channels I love following is Horrorhands. And he done a video called The Best Films in Horror Sub-Genre. And he sort of like said at the end of the video, you know, feel free to do your own. And so I've sort of done my own. So what's coming up now is my best films, I think, in subgenre. Now, horror is one of the only sort of genre of films that has subgenres. I suppose the only other really one that does is comedy, that has loads of subgenres. Now, what we mean by that is like other genre of film have a horror film in it, like say let me try and think, say like a western, you know, a cowboy film, western. So a western horror is a subgenre. Yeah, so you're getting the point. Like demonic films, subgenre. Animal films, subgenre. You know, it's like other films that can be like made into like a horror film, comedy horror films, you know, all that. So I've done a sort of A to Z. Now I haven't got every letter, but hopefully I've got quite a few genres in here. Let me have a little look. I have quite a few. He had about 23 in his video. I think I've got a bit more because I've added some of my own genres, and a couple of genres that Horrorhands did I've taken out of mine, because he's got things like shockumentary. Now that is a genre I'm not interested in. It's just not something I think is entertainment. I don't follow sort of shockumentary. So any sort of genres like that Horrorhands has done, because he likes that, I've taken out of mine and replaced it with something else. But most of these are ones that he's done, and a few that I've added. So we'll start off with A, and first genre, aliens. So what's going to be my favourite aliens that I recommend? Obviously, it's going to be Alien, right? I mean, this is a fantastic movie. It's all based in one sort of like a sort of spaceship, and they get this emergency call. They go to investigate, and it's an alien, and they take it on board, and it starts killing off the crew. So it's a real sort of like film about isolation in space, and with like a really cool alien. So for the alien subgenre, Alien is my selection. Next, and animals. So animal films, I'd have to go with Jaws. It's a classic. It's brilliant. There's so many great sort of like animal sort of films like Crawl, Cujo, and all these great sort of animals. But to me, Jaws is the one that I would put in as a subgenre. Best film in that sort of subgenre would be Jaws. Now, this is obviously about a shark that's sort of like terrorizing a local little island, Amityville Island. So, and it's like they're trying to hunt this shark down because it's sort of like killing people that are on the beaches, etc. It's a really cool classic 70s film. Absolutely amazing cast, amazing film. Both of those are in my top 10 favourite movies of all time. Next one is Anthology. Now this means a film that's made up of like short stories together. Classic ones are like Asylum and all those kind of films. Like Amicus did a lot of sort of like anthology films, and mine is an Amicus film. But films like Ghost Stories that come out quite recent is one. And these are also like little stories put together into one big film. And I was going to go with a different Amicus one, but in the end I went with The House That Dripped Blood, which is about all these sort of guys in this room telling their stories, and it sort of builds up to an ending. I suppose Saw is a little bit of an anthology film, because it's like all these different people that have done wrong things, and it's sort of like they're all in this house together. So that I think you can class Saw as an anthology sort of film. But I went with The House That Dripped Blood, an Amicus film there with Christopher Lee, Pete Cushing, I believe. So really cool. Next one is body horror. Now again, I was going to go with the king of body horror, David Cronenberg. He's done some amazing body horror films like Rabid, The Brood, The Fly. But I went for the other classic sort of body horror director, and I went with Clive Barker and Hellraiser. Now this one is all about this guy that's got this box, and it's sort of like opened the gateway to hell, and he's sort of like been torn apart. And this film is about him sort of like regaining his body back together again by the woman sort of like killing for him so he can drink the blood to reform his body. And also you've got these Cenobites that have all been tortured. They're like sort of like demons, and they've all been sort of tortured, and they've all got this sort of body, sort of like you got Pinhead, it's got these nails all in him. You've got all these sort of things with sort of different sort of body horror going on. So yeah, I went for Hellraiser as the best sort of body horror movie in that subgenre. So next is Cannibal. Now again, I went obvious because to me it is probably the best cannibal film out there, and I went with Cannibal Holocaust. It's not a genre I really dip into a lot. Not because I don't. It's not because of the cannibal horror. It's the animal cruelty bit puts me off. And that is the only thing. Apart from that, it's really good movies. Yeah, they're extremely gruesome and extreme, but they're really, really cool, and I do like them. I just wish there weren't any animal cruelty. I wish all these other ones like Cannibal Ferox, Cannibal Apocalypse, and Eaten Alive, Mountain of the Cannibal God, I wish they would do what they did with this and go on in and make an animal cruelty free version. Just cut it out. You know, I would be happy and buy those then. But that is my cannibal film at C. So comedy horror next. I went with, I just love this film. I laugh every time I see it, and it's Tucker and Dale versus Evil. About two sort of like hillbillies that have bought this sort of like run-down sort of like hut in the middle of the countryside, and there's a group of teenagers going there also on holiday, and they think that these two are sort of like killers, and these teenagers, and that these two think the teenagers are killing themselves, and it's all sorts of hilarious thing goes on in this film. I must try and do a review of this on my channel. I don't do much comedy horrors on mine, but this is classic. It's just amazing. It's the best comedy horror, I think. Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So that's comedy horror. I was going to go with classic Young Frankenstein or something like that, but I thought, no, I love that. Next up is Cop. I added cop horrors. Now, I went with one that I reviewed not so long ago, and it's Deliver Us from Evil. Now, these are sort of horror films that have a cop baseline, like Seven, Maniac Cop, all these sort of horror films like that got like a cop investigation sort of thing. Maybe the New York Ripper could be under that as well. But I went with this because I thought, yeah, it's so amazingly spooky and haunting, and it's really, really cool, and it's got Sean Harris in it, so I had to put it in there. Amazing film. The devil, deliver us from evil. Absolutely amazing. So that's my cop subgenre. Next up is costume drama. I went with next. Some of these, like I said, some of these Horrorhands didn't have in his. But these are ones that I put in mine. Costume drama, I went with The Woman in Black, just because it looks absolutely stunning, and it's an amazing horror haunted sort of house. I was going to put hauntings in here as a subgenre, but it's not really, because it's a horror, isn't it? Hauntings is a horror film, so I don't really need to put it in here too much. So I just thought, well, the hauntings is gonna be covered in some of these subgenres here. So I went with costume drama. I went with The Woman in Black, which is absolutely fantastic. Right, next up is demonic films, demons. So I was going to go with Demons, with that of the classic Lenzi film, but I actually went with Devil's Due, about a young couple just got married. They go on honeymoon. This woman gets drunk and drugged and taken away and involved in the ceremony, and she's like carrying, I believe, like a demon child, and she's trying her best to protect it, and she turns really demonic, and she's got like the tribe that did this are watching out for her, watching over her, and her husband's not sure what's going on. It's an amazing, creepy, scary film. Devil's Due is my demonic film. Next up is drama. Again, it's another one that Horrorhands didn't have in his selection, but I thought I'd add it in. Drama. Now, when I mean drama, I mean something that's got like a really sort of like, you know, like a classic sort of drama story. I was going to go with The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which is a court drama about an exorcism that's gone wrong. But I actually went with a film I reviewed a week or so ago, and I went with Audrey Rose, which is fantastic. This is about a young girl who's a reincarnation of another young girl. And it's the father of the first girl trying to prove to the other family that this girl was once another girl. And it's such a really cool film and such a different take on the horror genre. And it was really, really cool. I absolutely really loved the film. So I thought, well, I'm going to stick that in there as my favourite drama subgenre in the horror. Next up is extreme horror. I don't do extreme horror too much, to the real extreme. I'm not really into things like the Serbian films or Salo or anything like that. I'm just to me, it's just not, or you know, Faces of Death and things like that. To me, it's just not for me. It's not entertainment. The shock value, you know, it doesn't need to be that sort of like gross out. But this one is really gross, and I've gone for Terrifier 2. Okay, this is the Terrifiers, the set with 1 and 2, but I've actually said I would say Terrifier 2 is definitely my recommendation of extreme horror. I was going to go with Human Centipede or Martyrs, but no, I thought I'd give Art the Clown a shout out as extreme horror. Terrifier 2. How are we doing with time? Oh, 13 minutes, not too bad. Next one is found footage films. So footage, like films that are supposed to be based on like a camcorder or documentary kind of thing, and people filmed it actually happening. I suppose the classics ones are The Blair Witch and obviously Cannibal Holocaust are the two really well-known ones. But I went with a Spanish one called Wreck, which is based about like a TV crew going out with a fire brigade one evening on their duties, making a documentary about what the fire brigade get up to. And they get called out to this apartments in this town in Spain, and it turns out there's a virus in this apartment, and the apartment goes into lockdown, so everyone that's in there can't leave. They're stuck in there, and there's this virus going on with these infected people that have turned into almost sort of like zombie-like, sort of like killers, and trying to infect all the others. And it's an amazing suspenseful survival horror, really clever piece of horror sort of filmmaking, and it's really well done, and it's really scary, absolutely petrifying actually. So that's my found footage film, and that is Wreck. Next up is my giallo film. Giallos, they're required taste because most of them are quite slow burn moving, and they're all very quite similar. But the king of them is obviously Dario Argento, and my favourite is Tenebrae. I absolutely love Tenebrae. It's probably my favourite film of his as well. This is about an author who writes this book, and the killings, and someone is copying the killings from the book, and it's got like a really awesome sort of ending, which I love, and it's really beautifully shot. It's an amazing film, Tenebrae. As far as giallos go, it's fantastic. I do like Deep Red and Suspiria to a point, but this one is the one I like most, Tenebrae. That's my giallo. Next one is Home Invasion. I went with the film with Liv Tyler, and I went with The Strangers. It's about the young couple that have just come back from a party, and they've got a group of young sort of like teens dressed in masks, tormenting them and then, you know, killing them in their own home. And so it's like a home invasion film. They're all sort of films that are like The Purge and all that. These are all kind of like home invasion films where you've been invaded at home. There's a really good French one called Them, which I really like, and I can't put my hands on it. I don't think I no longer have it. I will try and pick that up at some point because it's a really good film. But I went with The Strangers for the home invasion. I had another different couple of sections now that weren't in Horrorhands one. I went for historical horror. Now, I was going to go with something like Mark of the Devil or Witchfinder General, but I went with my favourite, as you know. I went with The Witch. Now, this is like set in old New England, back in sort of like medieval times. So when we say historical, it's costume drama, but it's more historical, like it's from a period. So like Witchfinder General, Name of the Rose, and all that kind of thing. So I went with The Witch for the historical. It's an amazing film about a family that have been sort of thrown out of the town, and they're trying to set out on their own. They try to become farmers, but they don't have the skills to do so, and everything fails. Their crops, everything, and they move in an area where there happens to be a witch living. It's a really cool horror film. Absolutely love The Witch. So that is my historical subgenre. Next, we're down to K now. I've got Killer Children. So I went with Bloody Birthday. This is about a group of kids that start killing people. They're like little serial killers, really. Horrible little things. Yeah, but there's loads of sort of killer children sort of films. You know, I could have gone down the line for. Sorry about that, guys. I had the lad call me right on cue. He's absolutely classic at calling me when I'm making videos. Every time. But yeah, and we have a giggle about it. I do try to do them when he's not going to call. Oh, he won't call me yet. But every time I do that, he calls. Anyway, Killer Children. Bloody Birthday. Yeah, this is quite cool about these horrible kids sort of like killing people and stuff. It's a kind of slashery sort of film. It's good. Again, it's not one that gets sort of like talked about a lot, so it might be something worth reviewing on my channel because I don't see many people talking about it. I'll put that aside just in case I fancy going into that. So anyway, Killer Children, Bloody Birthday. Staying with K, we got Killer Clowns. Now this was quite a difficult one because again, there's so many of them. I mean, I could have done Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I could have done Terrifier. Could have done Pennywise. But I went with Clown. This is an Eli Roth film, and it's about this guy that his child's got a birthday party and the clown can't make it, so he goes and buys this antique clown outfit, but it's actually haunted, and he puts it on and he can't get it off, and he starts turning into a clown, and that's where it's a real good sort of and he's also turned to a killer as well. It's an amazing film, really creepy and quite scary. Really good film. So Killer Clowns, Clown. Next up is Monster. genre. This was another difficult one because I was thinking about, oh, should I go with Frankenstein, or should I go with something really classic like The Wolfman and all this kind of thing? And then I thought, oh, maybe The Blob, because I love The Blob, the remake. But no, I went for a video nasty. I went with Night of the Demon. This is about a Bigfoot, and it's like you can see the monster there. Really cool film, extremely gory. If you ever watch it, you can see why it was a video nasty. It's about this group in this forest in Hunt, and they find a Bigfoot, and it's really, really cool film. It's really low budgety, but looks really amazing, and it's still really cool today. And the Bigfoot does look quite cool. I do like it. But yeah, it's a really difficult one, the monster genre, because like I said, you got I was going to do one of my favourites, Troll Hunter, but I thought, no, I won't do that. I won't do Feast. I won't do Deadly Spawn. I won't do any of that. I'll go for something like this that's a little bit different. So I went with Night of the Demon for my monster genre. Next is paranormal subgenre, and I had to go for it, didn't I? The classic, the Paranormal Activity, but I've gone for the whole lot because all of them are fantastic. Really, really cool. They're all terrifying. They're all scary. They're all creepy. They're just brilliant to watch at any time. I can't recommend them enough. But it's best watching these in order, apart from the last one, because it's got absolutely nothing to do with the actual first sort of 6 movies. It's got nothing to do with it. The last one's called Next of Kin, but that's still amazing too. So for paranormal subgenre, I went with the Paranormal Activity franchise. You can't go wrong with those films, guys. Next up is People, and this is like a strange one that Horrorhands put in there. Now I think he means people just being horrible to people. So I went with a really nasty little film, actually, called Mother's Day. It's about this group, these friends having a little house party and stuff like that, and then they get invaded by these 2 guys who start torturing and killing them and holding them to ransom. And then the mother turns up, and she's evil, and they all end up being tortured, trying to escape these horrendous people, and it is an horrendous film. It's quite brutal and actually quite gory, and it's like, yeah, and quite violent, and a lot of I tried to watch it with some family, and they're like, I can't watch it. It's just horrible, and it is a horrible film. It's people being horrible to people. So my People film is Mother's Day. Next up is one that I put in myself, I think. Yeah, railway horror. Okay, again, because I work on the railway, I thought I'll put that in there. So it's horror on a train, and you'll be absolutely shocked how many films there are of horror films. In fact, I might do a top 10 of top 10 horrors on films. Horror on the tracks, if you like. So I might look at that in the upcoming weeks. But I went with a British horror that's not long had a review on my channel, and I went with Creep because I love this film. Again, it stars the amazing Sean Harris, and it's about this sort of killer that lives in the underground, and he's like from some old child experiments, and he's still living in the underground killing people off, and it's about unfortunate people succumbing to him one night on the London Underground in Charing Cross area. Yeah, so it's a really cool film, really love it. So I wanted to add the train sort of genre because of our work on the railway. So there we are, under our railway horror, Creep. You'd be surprised how many films there are on trains. So that's that one. religious horror, I went with The Omen. It's my favourite of that sort of genre. I was going to go completely different and put something a bit more like Name of the Rose. I was going to put something like that in there rather than be obvious, but I couldn't. Yeah, I love The Exorcist, but this to me is more religious than The Exorcist. The Exorcist to me is, you know, is a possession film, and this is the actual Antichrist. So it is the anti-religion. So I had to put that in there. The Omen as my religious horror film. Now, Horrorhands did Rape Revenge, as there's not many of that in that genre. Obviously, I'll Spit on Your Grave and things like that. I just said revenge genre. So I went with revenge, and I went with a slasher, and I put The Burning in there as my favourite revenge movie. This is about a caretaker, Cropsey, that's been tormented by his kids, and they end up setting his house on fire, and he gets really badly burnt, and he goes back and gets revenge. Lots of slasher movies are revenge movies. The original Friday the 13th is a revenge movie, you know. So it's revenge movies. There's loads of them. Obviously, you've got Last House on the Left. You've got Spit on Your Grave, the extreme ones. But I went with this one because I thought, yeah, it's something different, and I just love The Burning. Any excuse to sort of talk about it, and I will. So I put that in as my revenge movie. I thought, well, not your slasher. We'll get to slasher, and you know what that's going to be. But yeah, The Burning is my revenge movie. Another one that I put in myself was road trip movies. Again, it's another sort of genre. You'd be surprised how many there is in there. Films like Jeepers Creepers and Roadkill and things like that. But I went with The Hitcher with Rutger Hauer, which is a really cool film about a guy on a road trip delivering a car, and he's been tormented by this psychopath, sort of like killer, who's sort of like teasing him throughout the whole trip. This is the DVD version, but you'll be happy to know that Second Sight have picked this up, and they are releasing this on 4K and Blu-ray later in this year. Fantastic news. But yeah, under road trip movies, I've put The Hitcher. I thought about Jeepers Creepers, but I thought The Hitcher. Next up is sci-fi horror. I went for. Yes, I could have put Alien, but I've already done that. So I went with my other favourite sci-fi film, and that's The Thing. You have to watch this movie. You have to have this in your collection. It's John Carpenter's masterpiece. Absolutely amazing film. It's so cool about all these guys sort of stuck in the Antarctic in the snow. There's this creature from another planet that's killing them all off by overtaking their body, and they don't know who's the killer and who's going to be next, and it's like a whodunit sort of film in the snow, and it's amazing. Extremely gory, great effects. Kurt Russell, all the way a win. Sci-fi horror, The Thing. Absolutely amazing. Another one I added to my own little list was serial killer subgenre. I was going to be obvious and put Henry in, but I went with the classic From Hell, because I thought, well, this is an amazing horror film. It's a great setting. It's old London with Jack the Ripper, great costumes, great gore, great scenes, great cast, really well acted, really cool film. From Hell was my favourite and best serial killer subgenre film. Next is the slasher, and I had to sort of like put in there pieces. Yes, my favourite slashers are Friday the 13th, but you know how amazing they are. That's my favourite slasher genre, franchise, sorry. Absolutely love them. I love all the Friday the 13th films. But I wanted to put pieces in, just because I talk about it so much, and because I love it so much, that I think, yeah, I'm going to put this in as a starter, as a best sort of subgenre horror film to start with, because Friday the 13th's amazing, but there's a whole series of films, just one on its own, so you might not want to go down the whole franchise route. So I thought, well, I'll dig a single film out that's on its own, and of course I went with pieces. I'm not going to go into it. There's a review on my channel, amazing. We're getting there, guys. We're up to V, next, Vampires. And you know what that's going to be. Let the right one in. It's my favourite vampire movie. It's the best place to start. It's amazing. I could have been obvious and gone with the Hammer Draculas, or the Gary Oldman Dracula, or anything along those lines. Martin, or Vampire, Interview with Vampire. You know, it's not my go-to genre. It's really not. There's a few standout vampire films, and this is one of them. This and Martin, to me, are the standout sort of films in that genre. So in the subgenre of vampires, let the right one in. Again, a review on my channel already, guys. Check it out. Next up is Werewolves. Can only be one, really, can't it? American Werewolf in London. Yes, I could have gone for the classic, the Universal Wolfman, or the remake, because I like the remake. There is some good werewolf movies. The Howling's really cool. I like the comedy one, Teen Wolf. That's really cool. Yeah, there's some really the train one, another train one called Howl. That's really good. There's some great werewolf movies out there. But I went, Ginger Snaps is another good one, but I went with this one. There's some rubbish ones as well, like Dog Soldiers. But yeah, I went with this one, which is amazing. American Werewolf in London. It's classic, it's amazing. Still the best werewolf movie out there. And if you want to get into werewolf movies, start with the best and work yourself down. American Werewolf in London, werewolf, subgenre. So we've got two more subgenres to do. Another one I've added in as a W's, Westerns, because I'm a big Western fan. So I had to put that in as a subgenre, and I put in Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell. It's a strange story. They're going looking for these missing people, and they stumble across a tribe living in like these hillsides, and they're cannibals. And it's a really cool film. It's very brutal. It's a slow burn, but it's absolutely brutal. And there's some quite shocking scenes in it. Quite a horrible story. Amazing film, though. My favourite Western subgenre horror is Bone Tomahawk. So finally, it's Z, so it's got to be zombie, isn't it? And you all know my favourite zombie movie, Day of the Dead. So I've got to recommend that. Yes, I love zombie flesh eaters. I love Dawn of the Dead, original. I love Night of the Living Dead. I love Zombie Creeping Flesh. There's so many good zombie films out there. Cockneys versus Zombies is good fun. I have that too. Girl with All the Gifts is amazing. You know, there's so many good zombie films out there. But I went with the one that started it all with me with zombies, and that's Day of the Dead. I owned Dawn of the Dead first on Betamax, and that was amazing. But this film here was the one that I always saw at the cinema, and you know my story on that. I've told you about it so many times. So that is the best, I think, in the zombie genre for the horror is Day of the Dead. And that's it, guys. Long video today, a lot to get through. But I think it's quite an interesting video, because it sort of opens your eyes a bit to all the subgenres that are in the horror sort of genre. Because when people think of horror, they just think, oh yeah, the first thing that comes to mind with most people when it comes to horror is slasher. You know, the gore, the stalking sort of films. And I was just thinking, yeah, but what about Westerns? You know, what about your sci-fi, your comedy horrors, your extreme horrors and stuff? People don't tend to think of that. They just focus on Scream, or they'll think, oh yeah, Freddy Krueger, and all these other sort of things are like, yeah, but what about Let the Right One In? What about Cannibal Holocaust? All these great films that seem to get people sort of forget about, and it's because of these amazing companies like 88 Films and Arrow that keeps this genre alive by making people rediscover it and making people discover things for the first time. Like for me, Audrey Rose, I've discovered that one, and I'm in love with it. Absolutely love it. The German witch film I bought the other week, is it Hagazusa? I did a review on my channel. Oh, amazing film. See, I'm still discovering films, and that's amazing with the horror genre. And I love film. I know I always pump on just about horror, but I do love film in general. I'm not a huge, big budget action fan, like your Tom Cruise sort of big movies, Mission Impossible, all these sort of big sort of films that come out. I'm not into that too much. I love the horror genre because of all the subgenres, and that's what makes it so amazing, so cool. But I do love most films. I'm thinking of doing a week of Alfred Hitchcock movies, and picking out 5 of my favourite Hitchcock movies and doing reviews on them. But he's also delved into the horror genre with The Birds, with Stranger on the Train, again, Psycho, of course, Rear Window. He's ventured into the horror genre. So that's really cool. I might have a look at him in the next few weeks. Guys, it's been a long video. I'd like to thank Horrorhands for his idea of this best of subgenres in horror. Amazing idea, mate. I hope I haven't let you down by putting my selection up. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Look after yourselves. Look after one another. And I really hope I see you all soon.